So that's paperwork that's saying you gotta give up custody of your kid?
So what,
Harmony.
I have to sign this?
No, just being served it. So you're gonna have to produce where all that, where your daughter's at. So we're gonna figure this out one way or another. It's not going away. It's gonna get really big real quick, and it's not gonna be good if we get on the wrong side of it. You know what I mean?
A little girl vanished from sight. The father stayed silent, and two states faced a question that still echoes through their institutions. How did an entire system lose track of a 5-year-old child? Harmony Montgomery's story is not a mystery about what happened in the shadows of one household. It is a case of how neglect, bureaucracy, and misplaced priorities combine into tragedy. Her death, ruled a homicide committed by her father, Adam Montgomery, became a mirror reflecting every fault line in America's child protection network. Early life and systemic fragility. Montgomery entered the world on June 7, 2014. Small, partially blind in one eye, and medically fragile. From the moment she was born, her survival and stability depended not just on family, but on a social services network already strained to its limits. Massachusetts' child welfare system, like many across the United States, was managing thousands of active cases with overextended social workers and fragmented information systems. Harmony's story unfolded within that chaos. Her mother, Crystal Sorey, openly admitted to struggling with drug addiction during Harmony's infancy. The Department of Children and Families, DCYF, quickly intervened after receiving multiple reports of neglect. The agency removed Harmony from her mother's care and placed her in a foster home under the supervision of experienced caregiver Michelle Raftery. From that point onward, Harmony's life became a cycle of transitions. Brief reunifications with her mother whenever progress was shown, followed by removals when relapse occurred. Each handoff meant new documentation, new caseworkers, and new gaps in understanding. None of the professionals involved held the full picture of Harmony's medical or emotional state. Information was scattered across offices and case notes that rarely followed her from one placement to another. Her father, Adam Montgomery, was incarcerated at the time of her birth and remained uninvolved for years. The absence of paternal engagement should have raised concerns about stability when he later petitioned for custody. Yet by the time Harmony turned 4, procedural convenience began to overshadow concern for her well-being. By 2018, DCF's attention was shifting from child protection to case closure. Caseload targets incentivized reunification and file completion rather than long-term oversight. When Adam Montgomery reappeared, requesting custody of the daughter he had barely known, the system saw an opportunity to resolve a long-running case. Few questioned whether he could actually provide a safe home. The process became a matter of jurisdiction, a paperwork question, not a welfare one. That bureaucratic indifference would soon prove deadly. The custody decision that changed everything. In February 2019, a Massachusetts judge awarded full custody of Harmony to Adam Montgomery. The court reasoned that because he was a biological parent who had been deemed fit, the Interstate Compact on the Placement of Children, ICPC, a legal mechanism ensuring interstate home studies and follow-up, did not apply. That ruling, while technically lawful, had devastating practical effects. The ICPC exists precisely to prevent children from disappearing into legal gaps when they cross state lines. It mandates that social workers in the receiving state, in this case New Hampshire, perform home evaluations and maintain ongoing oversight. But once the court bypassed that requirement, the Massachusetts Department of Children and Families effectively washed its hands of Harmony's case. From that moment, Harmony ceased to exist in any active state protection file. Massachusetts closed its case. New Hampshire never opened one. The line of accountability was erased with a signature. The Massachusetts Office of the Child Advocate, OCA, later published a 101-page report analyzing this decision. It concluded that every system involved had placed legal formalities and parental rights above a child's right to safety. By not putting her and her needs first, said OCA Director Maria Mosides, our system ultimately failed her.
But you're sitting there telling me that right off the rip that there was something wrong with my daughter because of me. No, that's bullshit.
Okay. So if your daughter had marks on her at some point when you lived over there, how would you explain those?
How was she get those marks?
Well, I would love to know when the marks were there because DCYF came to my house multiple times.
Okay. And we know that they came there.
Right. and close the case.
Okay. Do we know that DCYF is the flagship agency in the country?
No, but if there was significant marks like you're referring to, I believe they would have flagged something at that point, and they would have said something. They wouldn't have came there and seen that the kids were well taken care of. All the kids loved being at the house with me.
This was not a one-off error, but a reflection of philosophy. A deep-rooted policy mindset that values the idea of family reunification even when evidence of harm is clear. Across the United States, agencies are often evaluated on how many children they can return to their biological families, not on how many they keep safe. Harmony's case became a tragic embodiment of that tension. Once Adam Montgomery had custody, no follow-up occurred. There was no home inspection, no psychological evaluation, no verification of income or stability. He had recently been released from prison and was living a precarious life with his wife, Kayla Montgomery, moving between short-term residences, often unemployed and financially unstable. Despite these red flags, neither Massachusetts nor New Hampshire social services re-engaged. The system had completed its paperwork and then simply moved on. Within a week of the custody decision, Adam relocated Harmony to Manchester, New Hampshire. There, she became effectively invisible. The state's education and medical databases held no records for her. She was never enrolled in kindergarten, and she stopped attending medical appointments after 2018, Article 1.3. Crystal Sori, now in recovery, tried repeatedly to contact her daughter. She reached out through Facebook, calling both Adam and Kayla, pleading to speak to Harmony. Her calls were ignored. In her later testimony, Sori recalled apologizing for whatever she had done, even though she wasn't sure what that was. Anything, she said, just to hear her daughter's voice again. The calls went unanswered.
What did you try to do to be able to see her or talk to her after that?
I just kept reaching out to Adam and Kayla and, asking, begging them to let me see her, and I was sorry for whatever I did. I wasn't even sure what I did, but I was just trying to reach out to really anybody at that point, his family, his grandmother, his uncle, his dad, anybody.
By October 2019, Manchester police had interacted with the Montgomery household on an unrelated matter, but Harmony was not mentioned during the encounter. That would be the last confirmed sighting of the child alive. From that point on, Harmony existed only in fragments. A FaceTime call in April 2019, a few online messages, and then nothing.
Did you see where her room was?
No. He never showed me.
When you say he, who is he?
Adam never showed me. I was only allowed in the living room or the bathroom.
How did you communicate with Adam at that time?
Facebook.
Facebook?
Yeah, he wouldn't give me his number.
When did you last see Harmony?
April
April of
2019.
April of 2019.
For the next 2 years, no school, medical office, or welfare agency recorded her name. In the bureaucratic sense, she had disappeared long before she was declared missing. December 7, 2019, the day everything ended. On December 7, 2019, prosecutors alleged that Adam Montgomery's violent temper erupted during what should have been an ordinary car ride. Harmony had a bathroom accident. Montgomery, enraged, struck her repeatedly, so hard that the impact altered the structure of her face. The assault continued at red lights as he paused only to resume hitting her. When Harmony finally went quiet and stopped responding, he said aloud that he believed he had really hurt her this time. Instead of seeking help, he chose to cover up what he had done. Investigators later concluded that he stored Harmony's body for several months, moving it between different locations before finally disposing of it on March 4, 2020. The exact place where she was left has never been found despite extensive searches. Prosecutors later described the killing as an act of cruelty and depravity. They argued that Montgomery's failure to seek medical assistance demonstrated a deliberate disregard for human life. His decision to keep driving, to hide what he had done, and to live normally afterward separated his actions from those of someone who had simply lost control. For more than 2 years after Harmony's death, Montgomery lied. He told family members, friends, and police officers that Harmony was alive and living with her mother in Massachusetts. When pressed, he turned violent and forced his wife, Kayla, to repeat the same story to others. Kayla later confessed to perjury for lying to a grand jury in 2022 and ultimately testified against him. She described a life of fear, poverty, and manipulation, recounting nights spent in their car and her husband's control over every decision. Her statements, supported by digital evidence and phone records, helped investigators reconstruct the months of deception that followed Harmony's death and revealed how carefully Montgomery had tried to erase his daughter from existence.
Adam was getting really angry from Harmony peeing in the car, and he repetitively kept punching her on the way to Burger King, and there were a couple red lights, and when we were at red lights he would go over the driver's seat, like in between the passenger seat, and he was just punching her repetitively in the head.
The lies delayed the investigation until December 2021, when Crystal Sorey, after years of unanswered messages and calls, finally went to the police. By that time, Harmony had already been dead for nearly 2 years. The search and discovery of the truth. When police finally opened a missing person case on December 31st, 2021, they uncovered a devastating void. There were no medical visits, no school enrollment, and no public record of Harmony's existence after 2019. Her disappearance had gone unnoticed by every institution meant to protect her. A $10,000 tip line was launched, later expanded to $150,000, as national media attention intensified and the public demanded answers. Detectives began an exhaustive search that spanned neighborhoods, rivers, storage units, and former residences. They interviewed dozens of relatives, friends, and neighbors, piecing together fragments of a life hidden behind lies. Investigators eventually located biological traces that confirmed Harmony was no longer alive. On August 11, 2022, the New Hampshire Attorney General announced publicly that she had been murdered. 2 months later, Adam Montgomery was charged with second-degree murder, second-degree assault, falsifying evidence, witness tampering, and abuse of a corpse. Forensic reconstruction, witness statements, and digital records, particularly the testimony of Kayla Montgomery, formed the foundation of the prosecution. Despite the absence of a body, investigators built an overwhelming case through meticulous evidence collection, cellular data, and timeline reconstruction that exposed the depth of the deception and the reality of what had been done to Harmony. The trial, a portrait of depravity. At trial in early 2024, prosecutors outlined not just a moment of violence, but a sustained pattern of brutality and manipulation. They argued that Montgomery's behavior on December 7th was consistent with prior assaults against Harmony, illustrating a history of extreme indifference to her life. The courtroom heard descriptions of months of escalating abuse, marked by control, anger, and silence. Prosecutors emphasized that this was not a case of sudden rage, but one of repeated cruelty toward a child who had no voice of her own.
We saw in this courtroom that Kayla is not lying about who hit Harmony. And there is no doubt about how Harmony was hurt in July, who killed her in December, what was done to her body and who did it, who falsified physical evidence, and how the defendant kept Kayla quiet. He's guilty of second-degree murder for recklessly causing Harmony's death with extreme indifference to the value of life, because you've seen beyond even that standard, he had complete indifference to the value of her life.
The defense countered that prior bad act evidence unfairly prejudiced the jury, claiming that earlier misconduct did not directly prove homicide. Yet the state maintained that this murder did not happen in a vacuum, that the jury had a right to understand the full pattern of neglect and violence leading to Harmony's death. Jurors listened to days of forensic testimony, digital evidence, and witness statements, including Kayla Montgomery's account of the weeks surrounding the killing. Each piece formed part of a picture of control and denial. The defense offered alternative explanations, suggesting that Montgomery had simply panicked after discovering his daughter's lifelessness. But that claim failed to align with the evidence of concealment, deception, and calculated behavior in the months that followed. On February 22, 2024, after 2 weeks of testimony, the jury found Adam Montgomery guilty of second-degree murder. The conviction also covered related counts of assault, witness tampering, falsifying evidence, and abuse of a corpse. He showed no emotion as the verdict was read, staring forward as though detached from the gravity of his actions. During sentencing on May 9, 2024, Montgomery refused to speak. His attorneys repeated that he maintained innocence on the murder charge, insisting that his post-mortem actions were inexplicable but not murderous, claiming he broke down emotionally rather than acting with intent. Prosecutors dismissed that claim, offering to recommend a reduced sentence if he revealed where he had hidden Harmony's body. He remained silent, even when given multiple chances to speak. The judge imposed consecutive sentences: 45 years to life for murder, 4 to 8 for assault, 3.5 to 7 years for witness tampering, 3.5 to 7 years for falsifying evidence, plus a suspended year for abuse of a corpse, totaling at least 56 years behind bars. It was not the harshest penalty available, but it was effectively a life sentence, ensuring he would never walk free again.
On charge ID 2027112C, the charge of second-degree murder, you are sentenced to the New Hampshire State Prison for not more than life nor less than 45 years. That sentence is stand committed. That sentence is consecutive. All of these sentences, I should say now, are consecutive to each other, as well as consecutive to docket 216-2022 CR 577, which are the sentences that you're currently serving.
In the courtroom, Crystal Sorey faced the man who took her daughter's life. She called him a monster and a coward, remembering Harmony as a child who lit up a room whenever she entered. Harmony's younger brother, now 7, wrote a statement read aloud by his adoptive father. "I love Harmony. I miss her. I hope I get to see her again. She gave me a broken Elmo toy that was hers. I still have that." That quiet moment captured what legal language could not: the enduring absence at the center of this case.
Daddy and Dada, what happened to my sister? Why did she die? Why would anyone hurt her? How about her glasses? Were they okay? My God, how will we ever help him process this horrible and brutal details of his big sister? Adam, you have to know you did that.
The prosecutor closed with a statement that resonated through the room. "Time and time again," said Senior Assistant Attorney General Ben Agati, "the defendant chose to be heartless, immoral, selfish, and unapologetic. An appeal for redemption or delay." By 2025, Adam Montgomery's legal battle had shifted from the trial court to the New Hampshire Supreme Court. His attorneys argued that the proceedings which convicted him were fundamentally flawed. Defense counsel Pamela Phelan contended that the trial judge made critical errors by allowing jurors to hear about Montgomery's earlier acts of violence toward Harmony. She claimed those incidents, though disturbing, were not directly tied to the events of December 7, 2019, and therefore created unfair prejudice in the minds of the jury. Phelan also objected to the way multiple charges were joined into a single trial, suggesting that this approach confused jurors and encouraged them to view all accusations as part of one continuous narrative of guilt. The justices pressed her arguments. Justice Melissa Countway questioned whether the pattern of abuse before the killing was not, in fact, essential to understanding Montgomery's state of mind. She asked whether that history of cruelty could show a broader, extreme indifference to Harmony's life. The state's representative, Assistant Attorney General Sam Gaugnier, responded firmly that this murder did not happen in a vacuum, and that the context of the months leading up to Harmony's death gave meaning to the crime itself. As both sides presented their arguments, the court chamber reflected two contrasting philosophies of justice. The defense sought to narrow the focus, reducing the story to a single day and a single act. The prosecution urged the court to see the continuum of behavior that led to that moment, arguing that violence against children rarely emerges in isolation. The Supreme Court has yet to issue a decision, and legal experts believe it may take months before a ruling is released. Even if Montgomery were to succeed on appeal, it would not mean freedom. He remains imprisoned for multiple felony weapons convictions that alone would keep him behind bars for decades. Harmony's name now appears in policy reports and advocacy campaigns, but remembrance alone cannot repair what was lost. She was not a symbol. She was a child who loved playgrounds, who shared toys with her brother, who had one eye that saw the world dimly and another that sparkled with curiosity. Her death forced 2 states to admit that paperwork can kill when it replaces protection. It revealed how quickly a child can disappear when accountability ends at a border. The question that lingers is simple yet haunting. If a system built to protect children could lose Harmony Montgomery, who else might it lose next?